Let's journey back to the year 1500. Forget the sleek, modern designs you see today. We're re-stepping into a world where the echoes of the Viking Age still resonated through the salty sea air. This isn't just history, it's a revival, a chance to walk the cobblestone streets of a bygone era, all thanks to incredible digital reconstruction. Copenhagen in 1500 was a city on the rise. Its name, Koopmanijhavn, literally means merchant harbour, and that's exactly what it was. A thriving hub of trade, teeming with life. The city was fortified, encircled by sturdy walls and moats. Towers and gatehouses stood as proud sentinels, not just for defence, but as symbols of the city's growing power and wealth. This was the heart of the city. Merchants from across the Baltic and beyond would gather here, their stalls overflowing with goods. The air would be thick with the smells of salted fish, fresh-baked bread, and spices from faraway lands. You'd hear a cacophony of sounds, the haggling of traders, the clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the rumble of wooden carts, and a medley of languages from German to Dutch to the local Danish tongue. The architecture was a rugged, practical blend of timber-frame houses and imposing brick structures. Many buildings had steep, tiled roofs to shed the heavy rain and snow. The streets were narrow, winding, and unpaved. When it rained, they'd turn to mud. It was a messy, chaotic, but vibrant scene. And towering over it all was the mighty Copenhagen Castle, a fortress on the island of Slotsholmen, the seat of royal power. This wasn't just a king's residence, it was the administrative and military nerve centre of Denmark. So, where does the Viking legacy fit in? Well, you wouldn't see longships with dragon heads sailing into the harbour anymore. The Viking Age, as a historical period, had ended centuries earlier. Their maritime prowess was undeniable. Copenhagen's very existence was built on the sea, a principle the Vikings had mastered. The ships in the harbour, while different from longships, were the backbone of the economy. These were cogs and hulks, robust trading vessels designed to carry heavy cargo. The sailors and merchants who crewed them shared the same adventurous, seafaring blood as their ancestors. They were masters of the Baltic, just as the Vikings had been masters of the North Sea. This Viking heritage was also etched into their mindset. There was a toughness, a resilience, a strong sense of community and identity forged over centuries of navigating a harsh and often dangerous world. The legal systems, the social structures, and even the language had roots stretching back to the Viking era. King John, who ruled at the time, was part of a dynasty that could trace its lineage back to the age of legendary Viking kings. The sagas, the epic tales of Viking heroes and gods, were still told, preserving a cultural memory that shaped their understanding of themselves and their place in the world. Let's take a closer look at the people. Picture a merchant walking through the market. He's not wearing horned helmets, that's a myth. He's likely dressed in practical woolen clothing, perhaps a tunic, trousers, and a cloak to ward off the chill. His face is weathered by the sun and sea. He's a savvy businessman, skilled in negotiation, but with a pragmatism and grit that speaks to his ancestry. Now, imagine a craftsman in his workshop. A shipwright, perhaps, his hands skilled at shaping oak into the strong ribs of a new vessel. His craft was passed down through generations, an ancient knowledge of woodworking that made Viking ships the technological marvels of their time. The tools may have evolved, but the fundamental understanding of wood and water was a direct inheritance. The harbour itself was the city's soul. It was a forest of masts. Ships were constantly arriving and departing, their crews loading and unloading barrels of herring, timber, grain, and textiles. Fishermen would bring in their daily catch, their small boats navigating the busy waterways. The smell of tar, rope, and saltwater was the city's perfume. This constant activity, this reliance on the sea for sustenance and prosperity, was the living legacy of the Vikings. They had built their society on maritime trade and exploration, and in 1500, Copenhagen was the ultimate expression of that legacy, now channeled into a new era of commerce and state building. Even the city's defences reflected this heritage. The strategic location, controlling the narrow Øresund Strait between Denmark and Sweden, was something Viking chieftains would have instantly recognised and valued. Control the seas, control the trade, control the power. This was a core Viking principle that the Danish monarchy in 1500 understood perfectly. The taxes levied on ships passing through the Sound, the Sound dues, were a primary source of the crown's wealth, funding the army, the navy, and the construction of grand buildings. And what about faith? By 1500, Denmark was a firmly Christian nation. The Old Norse gods like Odin and Thor had been replaced. Churches, like the Church of Our Lady, stood as powerful symbols of the new faith. Yet, just beneath the surface, Older folk traditions and beliefs persisted. The transition from Norse paganism to Christianity had been a long and complex process, and elements of the old ways were woven into the cultural fabric, sometimes blending with Christian practices in subtle ways. So, when we look at Copenhagen in the year 1500, we see a city at a crossroads. But it's also a city whose foundations were laid by Vikings. It wasn't a city of raiders anymore, but a city of traders. The Viking spirit hadn't vanished. It had simply evolved. It had traded the axe for the ledger, the longship for the cog, but the call of the sea and the drive to explore, to trade, and to build remained as strong as ever. Seeing this world brought back to life through digital reconstruction is incredible. It allows us to peel back the layers of modern Copenhagen and see the vibrant, chaotic, and ambitious city it once was. A city built by merchants, ruled by a king, and haunted by the ghosts of their Viking forefathers. This was Copenhagen in 1500, a testament to the enduring legacy of the Northmen. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back in time. It's amazing to think about the history that lies just beneath our feet in cities like this. If you enjoyed this glimpse into the past, please hit that like button, subscribe for more historical deep dives, and let me know in the comments what other cities and time periods you'd like to see reconstructed. See you in the next one.